The twin moons of Kepler 442c cast an ethereal glow across the lake's surface as Dr. Ethan Cross sealed the last water sample container. 3 months into his assignment, studying the unique bioluminescent properties of this alien world's largest freshwater system, he'd grown accustomed to the peaceful evening routine. The gentle lapping of waves against the dock. The soft chirping of nocturnal creatures in the crystalline forest beyond. Was the kind of tranquility that made him forget about the chaos he'd left behind on Earth. That tranquility shattered. With a desperate splash, Ethan's head snapped up from his equipment case. The sound came from the lake's center, where the water glowed brightest with microscopic organisms. Another splash, followed by what sounded unmistakably like a cry for help, though in no language he recognized. Without hesitation, Ethan dropped his samples and dove into the luminescent water. Each stroke sent ripples of blue-green light radiating outward, creating a magical aurora beneath the surface. He swam hard toward the source of the disturbance, his heart pounding as he caught sight of a figure struggling beneath the waves, pale purple skin. Caught the moonlight as thrashing limbs fought against the water's pull. Blonde curls floated like spun gold around a face twisted in panic. Ethan reached the drowning woman just as she began to sink, her strength failing. He wrapped his arm around her waist and kicked upward, breaking the surface with both of them gasping. She was lighter than he expected, her body surprisingly warm despite the cool water. Her eyes a striking violet that seemed to glow with their own inner light, rolled back as consciousness slipped away. "Stay with me," Ethan muttered, swimming toward shore with powerful strokes. "Come on, stay with me." By the time he dragged her onto the dock, she wasn't breathing. Ethan positioned her carefully, tilted her head back, began CPR. Water flowed from her lips with each compression. And after what felt like an eternity, she suddenly gasped and coughed violently. Those violet eyes snapped open, wide with fear. In confusion, she sat up abruptly, scanning her surroundings before her gaze locked onto Ethan's face. Then, without warning, she threw her arms around him in a desperate embrace. "Thank you," she whispered in accented but clear English. "Thank you, thank you, thank you." Ethan gently patted her back, still catching his breath. "You're safe now?" "What happened? How did you end up in the water?" She pulled back to look at him, her hands still gripping his shoulders. "I am Velanira of the Calarian people. I was ... fleeing. The water spirits called to me, but I'm not a strong swimmer." Voice carried a musical quality that made even her broken grammar sound beautiful. "You saved my life." "Anyone would have done the same," Ethan said, though he couldn't help noticing how her wet clothing clung to her curves, or how her blonde curls framed her face like a halo. Velanira shook her head solemnly. "No, you do not understand. Culture, when one saves another from drowning, they become..." She paused, searching for the right word. "Soul-bound, connected. You pulled me from the water, so now our spirits are linked." Ethan blinked. Linked how, exactly? A small smile played at the corners of her lips. "I belong with you now. Where you go, I go. Your people might call it marriage, but deeper." She studied his expression carefully. "This troubles you?" Ethan struggled to process what she was saying. "I think we should get you somewhere warm and dry first. Can figure out the rest later." As he helped her to her feet, Velanira never let go of his hand. Something told him she wasn't planning to anytime soon. Ethan woke to the sound of his coffee maker exploding. He bolted upright in bed, heart racing, only to find Velanira standing in his kitchenette surrounded by coffee grounds and mechanical debris, her violet eyes wide with innocent confusion. "Was attempting to make morning ritual drink," she said, holding up a twisted piece of metal that had once been the brewing mechanism. "The documentary said humans require caffeine to achieve consciousness." "What documentary?" Ethan rubbed his temples, already regretting giving her access to his entertainment database. "Love Actually" and The Bachelor. Very educational about human mating customs. Brightened. "Should I have brought you roses?" "The males always bring flowers," Ethan nearly choked. 3 days since the rescue, and Velanira had taken her cultural research seriously, She'd moved into his research station without asking, claiming the soul bond required physical proximity. Every morning brought new experiments in human behavior. Vila, we talked about this. You don't need to. Oh, and I learned about breakfast in bed. She gestured excitedly toward his bedroom, where she'd apparently arranged something on a tray. I prepared traditional Calarian nutrients with human presentation. Despite himself, Ethan was curious. He followed her to find an artfully arranged plate of what looked like glowing fruit and some kind of crystalline substance that sparkled in the morning light. These are starberries, Velanira explained, settling cross-legged on his bed with unconscious grace. And crystal honey. Very ... how do you say? Aphrodisiac on my world. Ethan nearly dropped the tray. Aphrodisiac. Cheeks flushed a deeper purple. The documentaries suggested humans enjoy enhancement of romantic feelings during morning meals. She picked up one of the luminescent berries, its juice staining her fingertips silver. In Calarian custom, feeding one's soulmate is intimate act. She held the berry toward his lips, her expression earnest and hopeful. Ethan found himself leaning forward despite his reservations. The fruit burst with flavor sweet and tart with an underlying tingle that spread warmth through his chest. Good, she asked softly. Amazing, he admitted. Watching how her eyes lit up at his approval, Velanira selected another berry, this one larger and more deeply colored. Instead of offering it to him, she bit into it herself, the silver juice running down her chin. Without thinking, Ethan reached out to catch the droplet with his thumb, the moment his skin touched hers. Something electric passed between them. Velanira's breath caught, and she leaned into his touch. Her hand covered his, pressing his palm against her cheek. Ethan, she whispered, and something in the way she said his name made his pulse quicken. He was leaning closer when his communication device beeped insistently. Work. Reality crashed back. He pulled away reluctantly. I have to check the lake readings, he said, hating the disappointed look that crossed her features. Of course, your research is important. She began gathering the breakfast things, her movements suddenly formal. I will study more human customs while you work. As Ethan headed for the door, he paused. Vela, maybe skip the reality TV for a while. Try the science documentaries instead. Her smile was radiant. You wish me to learn about your work? Think you'd find it interesting. You seem to have a natural intuition about the lake. After he left, Velanira touched her cheek, where his hand had been. The warmth lingered, along with something deeper, a connection that had nothing to do with soul bonds and everything to do with the way he looked at her like she mattered. She pulled up his research files, determined to understand the world that fascinated him so completely. Perhaps if she could share in his passion for discovery, he might begin to share in her growing feelings for him. The lake's bioluminescent patterns pulsed gently outside the window, as if approving of her decision. The algae concentration is increasing in Sector 7, Velanira observed, pointing at the holographic display of Ethan's latest readings. But the luminescence is decreasing.
That suggests the organisms are stressed.
Ethan looked up from his microscope in surprise. 2 weeks of studying his research had transformed Velanira from curious observer to insightful collaborator. She'd absorbed complex ecological concepts with remarkable speed, often making connections he'd missed. Right, he said, adjusting the display to highlight the anomalous area. But what could be causing the stress? Temperature fluctuations, she suggested, moving to stand beside him. Her proximity sent familiar shivers down his spine, something that happened more frequently as the days passed. Or perhaps chemical. Runoff from the crystal formations upstream. She leaned over to examine his samples, her blonde curls brushed against his shoulder. The sweet scent that seemed to cling to her skin like starlight, an ocean breeze made concentration difficult. We should take readings from the source, Ethan said, stepping back before he did something foolish like bury his face in her hair. Tonight? Velanira's eyes sparkled with excitement. The organisms are most active during the lunar convergence. That evening, they took the small research boat upstream. The twin moons hung full overhead, turning the water into liquid silver. Velanira sat in the bow, trailing her fingers in the luminescent wake, looking like some ethereal goddess of the lake. On Calaria, We believe water holds memories, she said softly. Every molecule carries the history of everywhere it's been. Everywhere it's been. Every raindrop. Every tear. Every first kiss by a moonlit shore. Scientifically speaking, water does retain molecular traces, Ethan replied, though his voice was rougher than usual. Chemical signatures, isotopic ratios, ... You make poetry sound like equations. She turned to face him, smiling. Do you never allow yourself to simply feel wonder? Before he could answer, storm clouds rolled across the moons. The first fat raindrops hit the water, and within minutes they were caught in a downpour. The cave system, Ethan shouted over the thunder, steering toward a rocky outcropping. We can wait it out there. They barely made it to shelter before the storm intensified. The cave was small, forcing them to sit close together on Ethan's emergency blanket. Water dripped from their clothes, and despite the warm air, Valonira shivered. Here, Ethan said, wrapping the blanket around both of them. In the sudden intimacy of shared warmth, conversation faltered. Valonira's wet curls clung to her neck, and Ethan found himself mesmerized by the delicate line of her throat, the way her pulse fluttered beneath purple skin. Ethan, she whispered, and when he met her eyes, he saw his own longing reflected there. This is complicated, he said, even as his hand rose to cup her cheek. Only if you make it so. She leaned into his touch. I have waited my whole life to feel this way about someone. Have you? He couldn't lie. No, never like this. Then why do you fight it? Instead of answering, he kissed her. Soft at first, tentative, giving her every chance to pull away. Instead, she melted against him, her hands fisting in his shirt, as if anchoring herself to the moment. The kiss deepened, becoming something desperate and necessary. She tasted like starberries and possibilities, and when she made a small, needy sound against his lips, rational thought abandoned him entirely. His hands tangled in her damp curls as she pressed closer, their bodies aligning with perfect symmetry. Through the thin fabric of her dress, he could feel the rapid beating of her heart, the warmth of her skin. I have dreamed of this, she breathed against his mouth. Since the first night I have dreamed of your hands on me, Fila, ... Her name was a prayer, a plea, a promise. Thunder crashed outside, but neither noticed. In the shelter of the cave, wrapped in each other's arms, they discovered that some bonds transcended culture and species, that some connections were written in the stars themselves. When the storm finally passed, they emerged changed. The easy friendship had transformed into something deeper, more complex. As they made their way back to the station in comfortable silence, Valonira's hand remained entwined with Ethan's, neither willing to break the connection they'd finally acknowledged. The message from Earth arrived on a Tuesday morning, shattering the peaceful routine Ethan and Valonira had built together. His replacement would arrive in 2 weeks, ending his extended research assignment on Kepler 404 to see. You could request another extension, Valonira suggested quietly, though her voice carried little hope. They sat on the dock where they'd first met, watching the morning light dance across the water. I've already extended twice. The university wants fresh perspectives on the project. Ethan's fingers traced patterns on her palm, memorizing the feel of her skin. Besides, my career is on Earth. My life is there. Is it? The question hung between them like a challenge. Or is your life wherever you choose to make it? 3 weeks had passed since the storm, 3 weeks of growing closer, in ways that defied easy explanation. Their relationship had evolved beyond physical attraction into something profound, shared laughter over breakfast, quiet evenings reading together, passionate nights discovering each other's bodies with reverent care. Valonira had become his partner in research and in life, her intuitive understanding of the lake's ecosystem proving invaluable. Just yesterday, her observation about tidal patterns had led to a breakthrough in understanding the bioluminescent cycles. There's something I haven't told you, she said, still not meeting his eyes. About the soul bond. Ethan's chest tightened. What about it? It can be broken. If one party truly wishes to be free, the bond dissolves. She turned to face him then, violet eyes bright with unshed tears. I would not keep you here against your will, Vela. I need you to know what. It would mean the breaking. It would cause me great pain. Not just emotional, physical. Like tearing away part of my spirit. She touched his cheek with trembling fingers. I tell you this not to manipulate, but so you can make your choice with full knowledge. That night, their lovemaking took on a desperate edge, as if they could somehow preserve the moment through intensity alone. Velanira moved above him with fluid grace, her skin glowing faintly in the moonlight streaming through the bedroom window. Look at me, she whispered as they moved together in perfect rhythm. Whatever comes, I want to remember this. To remember how you look at me like I'm the center of your universe? Ethan's hands spanned her waist, holding her close as pleasure built between them. You are, he gasped. God, Vila, you are. When release claimed them, it was with a poignancy that left them both shaken. No. They held each other in the aftermath, skin slick with sweat, hearts gradually slowing to match each other's rhythm. I love. You, Velanira whispered against his throat. I know humans don't always express such feelings quickly, but I needed to say it. I love your curious mind, your gentle hands, the way you taste starlight on my tongue. Ethan's arms tightened around her. I love you too. That's what makes this so impossible. The next morning brought crisis. Emergency alerts from the lake's monitoring system woke them before dawn. Massive die-offs in 3 sectors. Bioluminescence failing across entire regions. They worked frantically to identify the cause, racing against time as the ecosystem they'd both grown to love began collapsing. It was Velanira who made the connection between the failing areas and recent seismic activity in the crystal caves. The mineral balance is shifting, she explained, pulling up geological surveys. The crystals that regulate the water's pH are fracturing. We need to stabilize them before the entire lake becomes toxic. For 18 hours straight, they worked together. Ethan's scientific training combined with Velanira's intuitive understanding of the lake's rhythms. They developed a treatment plan, coordinated with emergency response teams, and personally oversaw the deployment of neutralizing agents. When the crisis finally passed, they collapsed together on the lab floor, exhausted but triumphant. The lake was saved, its gentle glow restored. We did it, Ethan breathed, pulling Velanira against his chest. We did, she agreed, then grew quiet. This is what we could have. Partnership, purpose, a life built together around something meaningful. As her words sank in, Ethan realized his choice had already been made. Not in his head, but in his heart. Somewhere between that first rescue and this moment, Kepler 440C had become more than an assignment. It had become home. 6 months later, Ethan stood on the same dock where he'd first pulled Velanira from the luminescent waters. But everything had changed. The research station buzzed with activity as teams from 3 different universities worked on the expanded lake. Conservation project he now directed. His career hadn't ended by staying it, had evolved into something better. Nervous? Velanira appeared beside him, radiant in traditional Calarian ceremony dress that seemed to be woven from captured starlight itself. Should I be? He adjusted. The unfamiliar ceremonial robes her people had provided. I still don't fully understand all the rituals. The rituals are simple, she said, taking his hands. We speak our truths to the water that brought us together. We offer our intentions to the moons that witnessed our first kiss. We bind our lives in the way of my people not because custom demands it, but because our hearts choose it. The gathering was small, but meaningful. Ethan's parents had made the journey from Earth, their initial skepticism about his alien girlfriend melting away the moment they met Velanira. Her own family, tall, graceful beings with the same violet eyes and musical voices, had traveled from the Calarian homeworld to witness the union. Dr. Helena Cross, Ethan's mother, approached with tears in her eyes. I've never seen you this happy, sweetheart, she whispered, embracing him. She's remarkable. She is, Ethan agreed, watching Velanira demonstrate bioluminescent algae cultivation to his fascinated father. She's made me see everything differently, not just this place, but what life could be. As the twin moons reached their zenith, the ceremony began. Elder Kython, Velanira's grandmother, spoke in the flowing Calarian tongue, her words carrying across the water like music. Bioluminescent organisms responded to the sound, creating ripples of light that danced around the gathered witnesses. She speaks of the ancient bond between water and life, Velanira translated softly. How all beings are connected through the flowing streams of existence. She says the lake recognizes us as one of its own stories now. When it came time for their vows, Ethan surprised everyone by speaking first in carefully practiced Calarian, then repeating in English. Velanira, beloved of my heart, when I pulled you from these waters, I thought I was saving your life. I didn't realize you were saving mine. His voice carried clearly across the assembled group. You've taught me that home isn't a planet or a place. It's the person who makes you want to be better than you ever thought possible. My choice has been made since that first night. I choose you. I choose us. I choose this life we're building together. Velanira's vows, spoken in both languages with equal fluency, brought more than a few tears. Ethan, my soul's companion, you dove into unknown waters to rescue a stranger. But in that act of courage, you rescued yourself from a life half-lived. Together we've discovered that love isn't about binding someone to you, it's about choosing each other every day with full hearts and open eyes. I choose you, not because custom demands it, but because loving you is as natural as breathing. The ceremony concluded with a ritual unique to their uniuna, blending of traditions from both worlds. They released modified bioluminescent organisms into the lake. Creatures Ethan had genetically adapted to carry both human and Calarian DNA markers. The glowing symbionts would live for centuries, a lasting testament to their love. As the celebration continued into the night, Ethan and Velanira slipped away to their favorite spot on the dock. The lake stretched before them, alive with gentle light, peaceful and eternal. Any regrets? Velanira asked, settling into the circle of his arms. Ethan considered the question seriously. His old life seemed like a distant dream now. The competitive university environment, the sterile laboratories, the constant pressure to publish or perish. Here he'd found purpose beyond personal advancement, love beyond his wildest imagination, and work that genuinely mattered. Only one, he said finally. Her body tensed slightly. What? I regret that it took me so long to dive into that water. He pressed a kiss to her temple. I could have been living this life months sooner. Velanira laughed, the sound like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. Perhaps we found each other at exactly the right moment. Some rescues, after all, require perfect timing. They sat in comfortable silence, watching the lake's eternal dance of light. In the distance, the research station hummed with activity, their shared life's work continuing even as they celebrated. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new discoveries, new opportunities to make a difference. But tonight, under the twin moons of a world that had become home, they simply held each other and marveled at the beautiful complexity of a love that had begun with a splash in luminescent waters. The lake pulsed gently around them, its bioluminescent organisms creating patterns that seemed almost like celebration, as if the water itself approved of the life they'd chosen to build together. Some bonds, Ethan reflected, were indeed written in the stars, but they were made real by the courage to dive deep and hold on tight.